Good afternoon, BabyYumYummers. I am Amanda Rogaly, Chief Mommy and founder of BabyYumYum.com. We are very, very grateful to have with us the most amazing, wonderful, informative female, and it's all about girl power, Lizl Budhram, who is the head of advice at Old Mutual Personal Finance. Now, we're extremely grateful for Old Mutual's involvement as our main sponsor of our Neurodiversity Parenting Workshop 2025, which was held on the 13th of September at the Forum a few weeks ago at the campus in Johannesburg. Welcome back to Lizl, where we can deep dive into a few questions, things that were asked at the event, but just general information that we'd like to know as well. So welcome, Lizl. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Amanda. I really appreciate the warm welcome.
Wonderful. So I'm going to kick off firstly. Why did Old Mutual decide to support our initiative of our Neurodiversity Parenting Workshop and participate in it?
Good question. Thank you, Amanda. I think it was obvious to Old Mutual that it is a very valuable partnership because as parents, we often, especially parents of younger children, as we all know, we often focus on the immediate day-to-day care of our children because it is really overwhelming. It's probably all consuming to most parents. Even your sleep hours are consumed by a young child, and it doesn't really improve. As you become a parent, it really tends to take over your time and your life. I think what is important is just to step back out of that very busyness and think about the financial plan that is going to enable your best future and your child's best future. So it does take a little bit of stepping out of that whirlwind of parenthood and paying attention to how do I manage my day-to-day expenses and how do I make the right plans, get the right process and documents in place, like a will, for instance, to make sure that my future is secure financially for myself as well as for my child. It's often we find something parents neglect to great detriment if something does happen. So I think it creates an ideal opportunity to speak to parents about the importance of just stepping out of the busyness and focusing on the day-to-day as well as the long-term financial plans.
So I think, summing it up there, it really is about allowing parents to be empowered and make those informed financial decisions as opposed to going on to, Google. So it's always best coming from someone who can give you the correct assistance, which we'll speak about a little bit later on. So Lizl, during our presentation, I remember you getting up on that stage and sharing phenomenal information in our neurodiversity parenting workshop. So we want to delve a little bit deeper, as I said before, into the things that parents and caregivers of neurodivergent children might not be thinking about. Take us through some of those points that you've come across and that obviously you've noticed and we've pulled out from our poll and our research with our followers as well. What are the main factors that parents should be thinking about?
I think the one thing, and as we saw at the event, the one thing that is fairly top of mind and that comes up often is my budgeting. How do I make ends meet? Medical aids are expensive, education costs are expensive. How do I make ends meet at the end of this month? So, and often parents find value in speaking to a financial advisor about those budgeting concerns. How do I improve my budget? How do I create room in my budget for those extra things that I want to provide? So there are lots of conversations happening about that. A partner, a financial advisor that can help with those conversations can be very valuable in making sure you use your money in the best possible way. Where we find less focus is in the longer term plans, retirement. I think people in their cities these days, maybe newer parents, don't think of retirement the way the previous generation did. Many people say, oh no, I have my own business. I'm never going to retire. I'm going to continue working. It feels like it's an event that's so far on the horizon. People tend to postpone talking about it, thinking about it and planning for it. And I think that is an important mistake that many people make because 30 years feels very long when you're 30, but when you are 49 or 51 or 55, then you don't really have enough time left to make a difference and create a proper retirement plan, which, as we know in South Africa, results in that sandwich generation where children have to look after parents financially and children at the same time, which really places pressure on the budget. So I would like to implore people to really start thinking about their retirement so that you can give your child the financial freedom and not be a financial burden on your child when they become a breadwinner as an adult in the future.
I love that analogy that you've just shared, the sandwich generation. And it's so true. looking after your parents and your kids at the same time. And that is exactly where we found ourselves at the moment.
Unfortunately, far too many people. So that is something as the financial services industry that we would really like to make headway to create better financial independence for people in their later years. That takes planning and starting far earlier than what people usually do. So that's the one element people avoid thinking and planning for. The other element is a risk event, such as an early death. So we do know these things happen. We see so many parents, fund members pass away before retirement without having any plan in place in terms of how much money is required for their children, for their spouse to maintain their standard of living. Is there a will in place? It really is disappointing to see. It's something that takes so little time to have a conversation, to put a document in place. It creates a far better outcome should death occur. I think the reason why many people neglect to do that is because it's obviously not fun talking about, what if I die? Some people believe, you must just avoid it and then it won't happen. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I think it's better to face facts, put your documents in place. If it never happens and the will doesn't, get needed at any point or is unnecessary, that's far better than if it does get needed in the event of death and there is no will or there's an outdated will, which really happens far, far too often.
Talk to me about disability and the risks around that.
Okay.
Why is our disability cover so important? Because if you come from a family and you don't have any hereditary diseases, why would you need to take out any other types of cover, whether it's whatever types of cover that one would face and one would need to cover and claim from when you get into that situation, whether it's a disease or whether it is an actual an impairment of yourself.
Yes, so you get various different types of disability. The one that's really important for purposes of this conversation with parents, especially where you are a salaried employee and a breadwinner as a parent, there is disability where you are no longer able to earn your income. The disability cover can step in on a permanent basis or a temporary basis to replace your income if you can't earn the salary anymore, which arguably is your most valuable asset, your ability to generate an income. So to protect that asset is really very important. So if we look at that type of disability, it is one of the unfortunate outcomes of the advancement of medical technology. When we look at a few decades ago, people contracted cancer and the survival rate was very low. These days, people contract illnesses and the survival rate is far, far better as a result of medical advances, which means disability cover where you now are surviving your illness or the event that you experience, but you are no longer able to go back to work, you need that disability cover to make sure that you can maintain the standard of living. You don't have to sell your house. You can make adjustments to the house, the car. If you need a special car vehicle for mobility, you've got funds to make sure that you can still maintain your standard of living. You don't have to move your child to a different school. Your child can maintain their standard of living because financially you've prepared for that risk. So that's the one. Then there's also functional disability, depending on the occupation that you have. Functional disability is if you lose sight, you lose the use of a limb, for instance. That's a different kind of disability. So what is the type of disability that's right for you as an individual? Once again, the best way to establish that, the type of disability, how affordable is it, how much cover do you need? Those questions are really answered in consultation with an experienced financial advisor who can help guide you in terms of your thinking. What is the best solution for you as an individual?
I would suppose one of the other factors that need to be considered is education, and particularly in the sort of sector and in a neurodiversity and parenting world where we are looking for special schools for our children, special courses, special therapy, special education. How important is that to consider as well from a planning and affording education?
It's so important because we know education cost increase at a rate above normal CPI inflation. So, and inflation is very expensive, especially if you want to provide for a specialized education. If you've got a very gifted child that may need to go to special educational institutions, you want additional support, if there's physical therapy, any type of additional support comes at an additional expense. Tutoring comes at an additional expense. You want to make sure, we all want to make sure that we give our child the best possible future so that they can really, live to their full potential. That again takes planning. It takes saving and it takes planning Also taking into account that what growth you need to get on those savings, those investments need to outpace inflation because the increase of education cost is above inflation. So that's very important. I just want to make a quick link, Amanda, between the disability conversation and the education savings. You also have products where you can add disability benefits to your education savings. So if I start with an education plan and I become disabled, I can add a disability benefit to my education plan that if I become disabled, that cover will continue paying the contributions into the education plan in the event that I become disabled and I can no longer make the contributions. And that usually comes at a very low cost. So that is also something that's really worthwhile considering where a parent starts an education plan for their child.
It's all very well and wonderful to have all of these different things that you need to get, but let's chat about current budgeting versus future financial management, because as it is, people are battling to make ends meet. Now they must start thinking of something that's going to happen 30 years into the future. How does one manage that? Where do you prioritize your monthly income?
Yeah, look, that is the dirty B word, budgeting, which is not a favorite word for many people. And I'm a strong advocate that when we look at budgeting, please don't be daunted or put off, because budgeting needs to be defined again in a very unique way. What works for you as a budget? It does not need to be spreadsheets and you sticking to an expenditure plan to the cent every month, with absolutely no room for freedom. But if you spend all your money every month, you do need to understand that you are applying all your funds to your current needs and you are not setting aside anything for the future you and even perhaps your future child, like we spoke about that sandwich generation. So it really is the starting point. If you are currently spending all your money and you've got no room for future you, to start looking at where can you start putting a little bit money aside. Where is this expense perhaps something that's not absolutely necessary? It is a luxury. How can you start carving that into your budget? The important thing is not that you start big, but that you start immediately. So if you can start carving a little bit out now, and then that creates a habit, that creates the seed that you are planting. And from there, you can start increasing the habit, increasing the size. Time is probably your most important asset, so that you start early. You've got as much time as possible to put this little bit of money aside to allow it to grow, and then to cultivate that habit not to spend all your money every month.
And I suppose that would go down to the point that you made earlier. It's about getting advice and speaking to someone who knows what's happening in terms of a financial advisor and a broker. And I mean, could you find something for 50 Rand? Would you be able to find something that could help you if you start putting in 50 Rand today?
Absolutely. 50 Rand you can keep in a separate bank account, for instance, a very cost-effective separate bank account, until you've accumulated enough to move it into a more sophisticated vehicle. So an advisor can absolutely help you with that. I think the other important point I want to make, most of us know budgeting is not rocket science. It's not difficult. It's often somebody that needs to help hold you accountable, where, it's like when we stick to an exercise plan or a diet plan, you know what you need to do, you know what you need to eat, but we don't often have the discipline to stick to it in the long term. You need to start early and you need to stick to it. And sometimes just somebody that's going to hold us accountable really increases the chances of you sticking to this plan in the long run. So a financial advisor can play a very, very valuable role in that instance as well.
Lizl, I think it's not only just about holding your hand and making you accountable, it's about changing the perception of a financial advisor. Well, one would think financial advisor for all your millions in your bank accounts, but it's not. I mean, it can start at very, very low income stages of your career and of your life, and someone just there to give you the opportunity to be empowered. I think that is a misconception that definitely needs to change within a public space.
Absolutely. I think there are some perceptions that advisors are just sales people, and they want to sell products, or that you can only deal with an advisor when you're really wealthy and you need special tax advice and special, solutions. And that is not the case. Many advisors really want to partner with people as they start their financial journey, and they partner with them over a lifetime. So it's important that you find an advisor that you really trust, that you really can see is looking after your best interest. That person is really going to help you achieve your best possible financial potential.
I love that. And speaking about having a financial advisor helping you and teaching you, how do we teach our kids, particularly even just neurodiverse kids, but kids in general, how do we teach them about financial planning? Because my question is, if I look at my kids, age 10 and age 12, they've never had access to real hard currency that they can put in a savings jar and a spending jar. It's all online. It's all in an account. It's all, there's no real understanding of the value of money. So how on earth do we teach them financial literacy when it comes to money and managing your money?
Yeah, I must say, it's not as easy as it was a few decades ago where you had the little savings bank, the little can that you could shake and you could hear your coins. I mean, coins are quite meaningless at the moment. So the world has changed. And I think our children are growing up in a world where things are digital. So they need to learn the value of money, even though it's not a physical thing anymore. I find that children are actually quite comfortable with the concept of money being far more digital than it ever was in the past. I think what's also really important is that you do have conversations with them. I mean, we spoke about, looking after your financial future and avoiding a sandwich generation position into the future. So you want to create the best financial position. You want to create a financial legacy where you have something to look after yourself in your later years, and hopefully even a legacy that you can pass on to your children with property or investments that they can inherit. You also want to give them knowledge and skills and habits so that they can manage that money really well and understand it really well. And that you do by having conversations. Each person has got a different perception of money, and it's important to understand what are your children's perceptions of money. Is your child a spendthrift, that the minute they get some money into their bank account, they spend it? Or do they cling to money and they get no joy out of money because they just want to keep everything in the bank account? So having the conversation and getting them to understand that money is there to be spent on a monthly basis, but also to be saved for the future, for the bigger dream, something that's longer term. So having the conversation with them and then role modeling the behavior. If you never speak to them about what is affordable, what is not affordable, what takes a little bit of time before it gets affordable. So, to talk about the family holiday that you're planning for the end of the year and how you need to save for that, or the new bike that you want to buy, or the new car, to get the joy out of that new asset that you have waited for and saved for. It's important for them to start seeing that and understanding that, because that's effectively how they learn and how you create the right insight and you role model the right habits to them so that hopefully they can pick up one day when they start earning their own income.
Correct. I think it all comes down to those practical pointers, that you just give them those little tidbits of information and allow them to generate ideas and their understanding based on that. So Lizl, from our neurodiversity parenting workshop, we had so many questions and so much interaction that came from that, which was so exciting. So I've picked out one of the questions that I want to ask you, and I'd love to get your feedback on it, please. So I'm going to read the question that came through, and if you could give me some feedback from this. I suffer from manic depression, amongst other things, and struggle to get life cover. Each time I'm trying to do a quotation, the system kicks me out due to me being too much of a risk. I've even been hospitalized a couple of times due to this condition. I do not want to lie about my medical history, but is there something that can be done to assist people living with mental health challenges and regarding this? Talk to me about full exposure, cover. Tricky one here.
Look, it's really good to get a question like that where there is full disclosure. So because many people deal with mental or physical health histories that pose a problem for them when they want to look at any risk cover, life cover, disability cover, or severe illness cover. So I think the first point I want to start with is that full disclosure, like we can see in this question, is absolutely crucial, because if you don't do full disclosure, there are access to some records like hospitalization that the insurer and the underwriting teams would have access to. So they could probably see, or they would often be able to see, any insurer where you apply for risk cover could be able to see that there is a history and you're not disclosing that. So I think that attitude of let me make full disclosure right from the start, it's really very important. It also creates a position where if you get that cover, there's complete detailed underwriting based on full disclosure. So there's no risk at claim stage, if you do claim under the life cover or the disability cover, that there could be a claim refused at that point, because everything was disclosed when the cover was bought. So that's very important. So I love that. I don't want to not be transparent. I don't want to hide anything. Very, very important and absolutely the right way to look at things. The second point I want to make is that if you have a condition like in this example, it's really important to speak to a financial advisor. You have financial advisors with years of experience, specifically dealing with risk cover and understanding underwriting and the underwriting team at the insurer really well. So if you are going online and you are applying for cover or trying to get quotes based on an automated system online, you may very well see, oh no, this condition, we can't deal with that, because those systems are very standardized. So you need to speak to a person that can actually have a conversation with you, understand your position, understand what other very bespoke elements in your situation could be considered by an underwriter to give you cover. So it's possible that the underwriters could refuse cover, but a financial advisor is going to enter into a conversation with them and position what are mitigating factors that they can take into account. Could there be a loading? So maybe you just pay an extra premium, or if there are enough mitigating factors, you could actually get a standard premium. You give yourself the best chance if you deal with an advisor with deep experience and having a conversation with the underwriters to see what risk cover they can get for you at the best possible price. So don't just rely on online systems or quotes. Find an advisor that's got the right experience and the right ability to speak to the underwriting team to see what cover he can arrange for you.
So Lizl, my last question is exactly related to that. Where does one get more information from? Who do we speak to? Is there brokers that we chat to? Do we phone Old Mutual directly and speak to the switchboard? What do we do? Who do we speak to get assistance and advice to empower us in our financial journey?
Okay, it's best probably you can phone the switchboard. I haven't tried that, so hopefully they will be able to put you through to a
I'm
department.
sure they will.
But if you want to look for a person that works for you, that works in your area, if you want to see somebody face to face, or you're happy to have consultations online or telephonically, you can go to the Old Mutual website. There's a functionality on the Old Mutual website called Find an Advisor, where you can say what elements of financial planning do you want to look at, retirement or risk cover or all of that, and it can guide you to an advisor in your area that can help you with that conversation. So that's the one way of finding an advisor. Alternatively, Amanda, what I would also recommend is speak to friends and family and find out where somebody is dealing with a financial advisor that they can recommend to you. Because we often find that if an advisor is recommended to you, it gives them credibility and it gives you peace of mind that you are dealing with somebody that a friend or a family member have had a really great experience with. I do want to just underline the importance of finding an advisor. It's like a doctor, it's like any professional person. There are many people out there providing professional services, but you need to find one that really resonates with you, that you really find comfortable speaking to, being very vulnerable and open to, because you do need to share important personal health, underwriting, financial information with this person. You need to be able to trust them, and you need to be able to establish a long-term partnership relationship with this person that can help you way into your retirement years even.
So thank you for that. And that is why you are the head of advice. Lizl, thank you so much for your time. As we said, we loved having the involvement of Old Mutual in our very, very first neurodiversity parenting workshop. And we look forward to so many more interactive sessions like this and questions next year in 2026 going on. And thank you very much for your participation. And thank you so much for your time today. I think a lot of pearls of wisdom have been shared. And if there's one thing I can take away from this, it's never too early to start saving and planning for the future. Lizl Budhram, Head of Advice, Old Mutual Personal Finance, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, BabyYumYummers. Goodbye.